逛一逛。啊，又来一台了。
We don't go to, they brought them up. Hang on to the rail, my dear. What?
哦，还有位置。
4楼还是5楼？4楼。4楼，然后它5楼也可以下来。今天是从7楼也可以下来。Off tour by ambassadors. My name is Paul. I'm the guide at the back of the bus. Ernie through a multi-point inspection before leaving the dooryard. The steers. Now, if it says emergency, don't open that window. I have 2.5 hours of paperwork. Those four to St. John, where we're at right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're the oldest incorporated city in Canada. We still want to be loyal to the king, moved up here and created a city. Ladies and gentlemen, out in the harbor, you passed Partridge Island on your way in. That was a quarantine center. It's coming in the 1840s. To the left of the bus is St. Patrick's Square. You will see a Celtic cross here in the square. That's the replica of the 40-foot Celtic cross out on Partridge Island in honor of our ancestors who did not make it here. There's over 2,000 Irish immigrants buried on Partridge Island. Ladies and gentlemen, St. John is the most Irish city in all of Canada. We celebrate St. Patrick's Day for 2 whole weeks. The week coming up to the big day itself. Now, the next week is more recovery than anything else, if you understand what I'm getting at. Ladies and gentlemen, St. John has had some high points and low points. Back in the 1800s, we were the 4th largest port in all of North America. However, one very sad day, June the 21st, 1877 was the day of the Great St. John Fire. This entire peninsula, which we're on right now, burnt in 9 hours, leaving destroyed 1,900 homes and businesses. Yes, it was a terrible day, but we rebuilt. And what you're seeing here is the architecture from the rebuild after the Great Fire in 1877. There are 3 buildings that did not burn. I'll show you those when we come to them. So, ladies and gentlemen, to the oldest publicly funded school in Canada, starting in 1802. This building, when it was built in 1933, the young men went up the front steps to win the school. The young ladies were told go up Duke Street in the side door, by the way, and I can't say this with a straight face, sit at the back of the class so you don't distract the children from their education. Doesn't happen like that anymore, don't worry. Now, ladies and gentlemen, St. John, being a financial center for the area, is the home of the first Canadian chartered bank. That was the Bank of New Brunswick, started in 1810 by businessmen here in St. John. The building that they used is on the left-hand side of the bus, just up the street here. It's got large pillars out the front, but when you look at it up the top, it will say 1820 Bank of New Brunswick, 1878. That's the first time and the second time that they built it. Now, the Bank of New Brunswick amalgamated with the Bank of PEI and the Bank of Nova Scotia in 1910. This building is no longer a bank. It's a bar where they throw axes for fun. Can you imagine? Only in Canada would we think of throwing axes and drinking beer. However, on the right-hand corner is the old City Hall building. That is a beautiful emporium right now. If you're up here, ladies, take your wallets, all kinds of things of beauty to buy here. Ladies and gentlemen, on the corner, opposite corner, it says Chubb's Building. You'll see, look up high on the building. You will see gargoyles up there. Mr. Chubb's had the local newspaper. After the Great Fire, he thought he was very important in the community. Those faces are supposed to represent the mayor and council. They are ugly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's true. You can't fight City Hall, but you can make an ugly face in stone that will last well over 100 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we come ahead here, we're going to follow this here. We have the police museum. Now, St. John has the oldest municipal police department in Canada, started in 1848. Later on today, you may see a Volkswagen Beetle parked out front, black and white with a cherry on top. That was a police car in 1972 here in the east side of the city. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's all kinds of lovely restaurants here. If you want to sample the cuisine from the local place to come. We are going to make a right-hand turn up King Street. Oh, by the way, our present-day City Hall, well, that's supposed to be an artist's conception of St. John, City of Lancaster, Parish of Simons when we amalgamated. We weren't fussy about that then, and we're not fussy about it now, but what can I say? It's our history. Ladies and gentlemen, Bernie's going to make a right-hand turn here in the corner going down Canterbury Street. But on the corner, before the Great Fire, there was a beautiful white house where this building with the purple awnings out front is. And the dog is taking a crap. This was the home of a famous British war hero. You may recognize the name. Benedict Arnold. Oh yes, the hand as being a businessman. Either suing or being sued, that was just the kind of guy he was. One night a bunch of his haters come up and burnt a dummy up in King Square with his name written across his chest. Finally got the message, he took a one-way ticket back home. Ladies and gentlemen, after the Great Fire, we brought in architects from New York, Boston, London, and Paris to help rebuild our city. When the Loyalists came, they built it all of wood. That didn't last because of the fire. So, a lot of these buildings look similar to what you see in old New York and old Boston. So much so that they bring movie companies here to do filming in St. John for movies that are supposed to take place in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. Now, the first time they came many years ago, this is before they had the technology to erase things on film, they said, all your city buses have Canadian flags on the side of them. We can't have a Canadian bus in an American movie. So we would put American flags over the Canadians. My buddy Dave lived behind the brown door here. His elderly neighbor, she saw the first bus coming up, the American flag, took a scream, what the hell is this all about? Anyway, Dave couldn't help himself. Didn't you hear? We joined the United States last night. She just about had a stroke. She just got her Canada pension, and again, she pays nothing for Medicare. And he told her that they were. Listen, this is a Trinity Royal Heritage area. The first church we see is a Church of St. Andrew, St. David, a Presbyterian church rebuilt in this area in the 1800s. The color of your door meant something. If you had a blue door, it meant the lady of the house was pregnant, expecting child. A red door meant you had a daughter of marrying age and suitors were welcome. Now a black door meant someone had passed away and the family was still mourning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when the Loyalists came here in 1783 and 4, they brought with them, of course, their religion. That would be Church of England. So they built an Anglican church on the right-hand side of the street. It was Trinity Anglican Church. Well, the first church burnt in the fire. They rebuilt this church that you will see on the right-hand side of the bus in 1893. This beautiful Gothic-style church is open all day. They have people in there who will show you around the church. So if you're in the uptown core walking around, take a stroll over there. You won't be sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, according to your tour map, stop number 2 is for St. John's Stone Church and Loyalist House. Straight ahead of the bus, up the end of Wellington Row, is the St. John's Stone Church. That church was built in 1825 using ballast rock off the ships coming from England. Again, a sailing ship would not sail right unless it had weight in the bottom. So the rock that they took off it, they used to build this church. We've now just passed the lower entrance of the St. John City Market, which I'll tell you more about later. However, to the left of the bus on the corner is this beautiful white house here. It was built in the year 1810 by Robert Merritt. He was a furniture builder who moved here from New York State. During the Great Fire, everyone in the house took their bed sheets, soaked them in water. They saved this house. The day after the Great is all what there was left to see. Everything went burnt to the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the New Brunswick Liquor Commission store. Stop number 2 for Stone Church and Loyalist House.
Number 2.
The only thing I can think of is the fact that the ladies rugby team lost yesterday, but other than that, I don't know. Here are the flags at half-mast. Honestly, other than lost to England yesterday in the finals, I don't know. Come April, the city put in a bicycle lane in front of we used stop number 4 for the market. You can see it from stop number 4. It's the oldest continuously run farmers market in Canada. It started in 1785 by charter of King George III. When they built this particular building in 1876, the year before the Great Fire, they built it of brick. The walls are a foot thick and the stanchions are 2 feet thick. However, come time to build the roof, they needed carpenters. All the carpenters around the city worked as shipbuilders. So these guys, what they did for the roof structure was they built the inverted hull of a ship. When you look up into the ceiling of the market, that's what you would have seen had you looked down 1800s. Okay? Now, the market opens down for the day. That bell is visible. Please don't ring the bell just for fun, because all the vendors will start closing up and everybody will be really annoyed with you that they couldn't shop in the market. In the market, you can buy all sorts of things. Fine china, tea, food. It's a myriad of things that you can buy there. So someone is looking to get... Did you want to get back on the big bus?
Yeah.
I'm right up front.
Thank you.
I saw your big stickers, so there's squeeze downstairs and up.
Okay.
Thank you. Tour by ambassadors. Or on your tour map. That's over in front of the King's Square. This was laid out in 1783 by Paul Bedell, one of the engineers who laid out the city streets here. And the sidewalks are set up in such a shape that they look like the Union Jack flag. That had been our flag till 1965, when Lester Pearson brought out the beautiful red maple leaf Canadian flag. Ladies and gentlemen, the Imperial Theatre was built in the year 1913 as a vaudeville house, similar to those in Boston, New York. We had many similar acts show up here, like Harry Houdini and all that sort of thing, doing the vaudeville acts. The building went from a vaudeville house to a silent picture movie theater, to a talkies, then to a church, and then back again to a theater of the performing arts. It usually opens around noon hour for the box office, and a lot of times they'll give people tours of the inside, unless they're doing a special show here today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is stop number 4 on your tour map for the Imperial and the City Market.
Want to go upstairs? You might want to go upstairs.
Number 4.
The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, there's no over $300 in value right there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this was always a residential area. Several famous people grew up here. One gentleman, he started a movie company down in California, 35, passed away. Could afford stones. Poor folks like myself, we were lucky to have a wooden cross that would eventually rot, fall apart, whatever. By 1848, the province said, you have to stop burying people here. There's over 20,000 people buried in this graveyard. So it was a death knell for the graveyard, because it was always the families that looked after it. After about 3 generations, the thing went, to quite a bit of disrepair. 1993, Casey Irving, the father of the Irving Empire, took it upon himself at his expense to refurbish this graveyard. Now, there's cobblestone walkways, park benches, a reflecting pool. If you're in the uptown, you're at the market, wander over there. Beautiful, serene place to visit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, St. John is the home of Canada's largest oil refinery, Irving Oil Refinery, here in St. John. And so our next stop is at Rockwood Park. Now, Rockwood Park was designed by the same of what is manufactured here in St. John is exported. A lot of it goes down to the United States. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Rockwood Park was located where it's at because of Lily Lake. Lily Lake is a lake, and if they could get some big hole stuff, they could flood them and use it for further reservoir. Now, the problem was, in the 1800s, no one was doing that kind of work. But the police chief come along and said, listen, I got it covered. We have a jail full of guys with nothing to do. So they brought them out here every day on horse and wagon, on a chain gang, pick a shovel, to dig the lake. Now, it was a twofold benefit for the city of St. John. On one hand, we had free labor for our waterworks project. Can't beat that. Second of all, it reduced the crime rate significantly because no one in their right mind would ever want to create a crime here. Go and blow well, you're going to end up on a chain gang. Well, where did those criminal minds go? They went 60 miles up the St. John River to the city of Fredericton. That's where the capital is. You know, where all the politicians hang out. The crooks knew they could blend right in. I mean, crooks, politicians, they see everyone the same way. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you happen to be a criminal, I apologize for referring to you as a politician. If you're a politician, hey buddy, ask for it, get used to it. Ladies and gentlemen, to the left-hand side of the bus, up on the next corner here, you'll see the entrance to the public gardens. Those public gardens have been there since 1908 and are serviced by the City of St. John Parks Department. In the pavilion, there are washroom facilities that are available called Lilies with a lakeside pleasure. There's no motorized water. 25-minute walk. It's beautiful to walk and take some pictures. We rarely see the cops in here. Now, to say there's never been a crime in here, older people with their dog, just people out here enjoying themselves, feeling very. Now, our fall foliage colors and colors, again, picture perfect. Solar panels, those are controlling lights that do the pathway all the way around Lily Lake. So when dark and open again in the morning at dawn. We have an RV park in here. This RV park opens on a long weekend in May when we celebrate the monarch's birthday. We call that the Victoria Day weekend. And it closes the second Monday in October, which is because, again, historically speaking, by the last weekend in November, sucks.
天地 RV 露营区，11月就下雪。
Season, and again in a couple of weeks, actually just 2 weeks time, they'll be all gone. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the tenting area is to the right off in the woods. It starts about a couple of 100 meters in. It's for tents and small pop-up trailers. While you're in there in a tent on the ground, they do recommend you keep your tent flaps secure all night while you're sleeping. Otherwise, you could wake up spooning with a raccoon, you know, because there's all kinds of them and their cousin, the skunk. So you really don't want that to happen. Now, Bernie's watching closely for the white-tailed deer. We come through here earlier this morning. We had 4 of them along the side of the road, 2 does and 2 fawns all together. The deer population in the city has exploded. Well, really, they have they're prolific breeders. Off to the left, up on the hill, is the stables here in the park. The city police have their horses for parade purposes stabled there. Other people can rent stables at night. They'll use the walking trails to exercise their horses. Now, God bless the Parks Department, like this guy coming along right there in the side-by-side, they go around and clean up all the trails so that we don't have to worry. I think this is the Centennial Trail, which was put here in 1967 here at the park. To the left, you will see the man-made lakes, but don't worry, we're going to have a much better view of them further down the trail. monument here is from Newfoundland. Now, earlier September on the 11th, I was coming through here, so we stopped for a moment of silence. Again, September 11th is still very well remembered here in Canada, especially in Newfoundland. Gander, Newfoundland is a town of 5,000, took in 7,000 airline passengers, kept them there for a week, took them into their schools, their churches, their homes, gave them a place to stay, fed them all, took care of their medical, charged them 1 red cent. And why is that? We're Canadians. We're always going to help our friends in need, no matter what their problem is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the flag for Quebec, La Belle Province. That is the only unilingual French province in Canada. But because of our French heritage, New Brunswick is the only bilingual province in Canada. So, bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Comment ça va? Ça va bien? Bienvenue, Saint-Jean, Nova Brunswick. Now you can go home and say, I actually heard someone speaking French up there in Canada. And in case you were concerned, that's the end of the French portion of this tour. Ladies and gentlemen, just coming up ahead is the Canadian Monument. It's a beautiful stone maple leaf made of pieces of granite from all 10 provinces and 2 territories. That was it in 1967. Yes, we now have 3 territories, but we're not taking that apart to change it, because that's our history in 67, and that's our history to stay. Ladies and gentlemen, Canada, strong, proud. That's our moment. Left pristine as God would want a lake to be. At the far end, there's a beaver lodge. On the other side, as we come on this bridge, you'll see the other lake. That lake has a paved walking path all the way around it. And as well, there are covered picnic tables, barbecue pits, sandy beaches for swimming. And again, I never mentioned any fee to come in here because there isn't one. There's no charge to come in here, go for a jog, go for a walk, get some fresh air, have a picnic, go for a swim, go skating in the winter, cross-country skiing or snowshoeing. Again, all free to come in, and everyone is welcome. So, ladies and gentlemen, climate change has caught up to us here. For a number of winters back, about 15 years, we had the International Pond Hockey Tournament here in St. John at, oh, there's some deer right here. A doe and a fawn. They're on the right now. These beautiful beasts are all over the park and all over the city. Now, one fell swoop. You don't want to try to get out and pat them, you know, or get up real close for a picture. They are a wild animal, and that you have to always remember. During this park, during the weekends, there's a lot of traffic in here. You see, they got bikes, using that for mountain trails, and bike trails and walking trails. Again, the story I started to tell about global warming. The last 2 winters, come February, it wasn't cold enough to maintain proper ice on the lakes, and they had to cancel the pond hockey tournaments. It used to be when I was a boy, the end of October, it started snowing. We never got rid of it till Easter. Now, the last few years, we have had green Christmases. We never got snow till January.
Well,
Again, time to change it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're here in the city, I'll give you a hint. If you're going to purchase something, use your credit card, because then you will get the proper exchange rate of about $1.40. The vendors, the stores, etc., will accept your American cash, but you have to remember they will not give you the same bank rate as the bank, because when they go to the bank charges them a fee to turn it back into Canadian. So rather than lose money, they jack back on the exchange rate. Now, if you're in a restaurant and you've got good service, you want to leave a tip, leave it in America. All those people, again, we all appreciate the Americans coming here, and again, we're trying our very best to make them happy. So again, you want to tip your waiter and waitress, etc. With American, $10 tip is worth $14. You'll see a big smile on your face. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of the park. The houses here, you notice They could tromp on your pasta plants, your daylilies, anything flowering that looks good there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, St. John is the largest city on the Bay of Fundy. Broadwood Park is one of the largest municipal parks in Canada and is located here in St. John, which also happens to be the largest industrial city in New Brunswick. There's more industry here in St. John than in any other community. Famous would come of the port. Now, Casey Irving came here in the 1930s penniless. By the 1950s, he's already a millionaire. He bought this. We come to the crest of the hill so we get a good view of it. It's just beyond the beautiful manicured hedge along with the fence. That home was Casey Irving's until he passed away and left it to his son, Arthur. Arthur, at the ripe old age of 96, 2 years ago, passed on. His wife, Sandra, and their daughter still lives there. That cobblestone driveway you see is heated. When you own Canada's largest oil refinery, you really don't care what the price of doing that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anyone on the bus who really enjoys a cup of tea without all those annoying tea leaves stuck in their teeth, listen up on this one. Theodore J. Estabrooks in 1895 founded the Red Rose Tea Company. Short invented the gauze tea bag.
Wow.
His little girls come home crying one day because they always had loose tea leaves stuck in their teeth. Well, he'd do anything for his little girls, so he invented the tea bag, he patented it, and he probably made as much money selling the patents to the other companies. To the left, behind this black wrought iron fence, you will see the Estabrooks estate. This beautiful brick mansion was built selling tea. One that's down the street on the left-hand side. It's a spooky looking place, narrow windows. It's got a, it's the house is the thing, but it's the people that live there. Mr. Parks only had 2 daughters, and they were old maid spinsters, but they put in their will, no men pallbearers at our funeral. Everyone had to ask, why not? The girls were emphatic about this. They said, for them to take us out when we're alive, guess what? They're not taking us out when we're dead. Ladies and gentlemen, colony of Acadia, the French colony, to the British. They renamed it Nova from reinvasion of the French and as well from pirates from 13 colonies. It was in its heyday for the War of 1812, and up until about 1850, then we were friends with everyone. The French weren't trying to come back. The Americans were all friends with us. So they abandoned the fortress, which was built of wood. Now eventually it rotted, fell down, someone cleaned up the mess, but they gave the land to the city of St. John with the diagrams and the drawings of the fortress area. 1960, city fathers decided we should put something up there for the tourists to see when they go up there to this historical site. So they put a blockhouse up there. People were visiting it during the summer months, but come the fall, when all the tourists went home, we still saw a lot of traffic up there. So they did an investigation to see what's going on. Come to find out, this was the best place to go watch the submarine races. Now, my friends, if you've never been to a submarine race, that's too bad. I unfortunately cannot tell you all about it because this is a family tour. However, when you get back on your ship tonight, mention around the supper table, has anybody ever been to the submarine races? If you gentlemen with a design, a smile on his lips, with enough liquor, I'm sure you could pry those lips and he'll tell you the whole story. Since you can hold his liquor, I'll give you a 2-word hint. Lover's Lane. I'm saying no more on the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, to the right, up on the hill, is the blockhouse. That's on the original site where one of the 2 blockhouses was on this fortress, which was the entire hill up here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come to our stop right behind this motor. A 90-second recap of the entire tour. Again, it's because we're hooked up with CP, KC Railway, which has tracks from here across Canada down through the States after they acquired the Kansas City rail line into Mexico. Not Margaritaville, Mexico, but industrial Mexico. There and back. So, out in the bay, you see Partridge Island, That was the first quarantine center from 1785. Of course, your ship is to the left. The first steeple you see is the Church of St. Andrew, St. David, the Presbyterian Church in the Trinity Royal Historical Area. That's where I told you about the color of the doors, the blue doors, the red doors, the black doors. Further on, the first high rise you come to, you look above that, you'll see a steeple just peeking over the top. That is for Trinity Church. Further over to the left, you're going to see a beautiful hockey arena down there, TD Stadium. They were predominantly Roman Catholic, and they wanted a large church. So the bishop got some money out of Boston, started building it. Here they were able to celebrate Mass in the cathedral. Now, let us continue. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to our next stop, and that is the home of the only river that changes direction completely twice a day, every day, and it's all because we have the highest tides in the world in the Bay of Fundy. Here in St. John, our tide will come up as high as 28 feet. Now, at this gorge is where the St. John River empties into the Bay of Fundy. Now, when it's at low tide, which was at 10:30 this morning, the rapids were coming through this gorge proficiently and violently. Now, as the tide starts coming in, though, it will erase those rapids and it will come to what we call slack tide. This is where it is safe for a boat to go from the bay to the river and back and forth. It's only about a 20-minute window of time when it's slack tide. We here love it best because we can get our boats from the bay to the river, etc. However, the tide continues to come up above the level of the river, and it pushes salt water 25 miles or 40 kilometers upstream. They call that brackish water. But that, my friends, creates rapids going upstream at this particular gorge. My suggestion to you is come around this tour again later in the day. Around 4:30, you're going to see the event of the high tide rapids going upstream. Right now, we're still going to see a downstream moment, but again, we'll go back again later today, and you won't believe what you're seeing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this part of the city was not subject to the Great Fire. A lot of the homes that were on Douglas Avenue were built by shipyard owners, sea captains, lumber yards. If you look at the house, you can tell if it was a lumber magnate who built the house because the windows are all square. If you see roundness to the windows, it's because it was the shipbuilders who built it, because they knew how to curve wood. And the ship's captains, of course, would want to have that type of window in their homes. Now, along Douglas Avenue, there's a man named John Gregory. He was partners with a fellow named Murray. They had Murray and Gregory Lumberyard. Well, Mr. Gregory built a brand new house here on Douglas Avenue, and he wanted to go back to England to shop for it because his wife was rather fussy about what she put in her house. So they took a transatlantic crossing, went shopping in London, and they loaded up all their furniture on a brand new vessel coming back over to North America. The day they were supposed to go to get on the new ship, his sister-in-law took ill, where his wife did not want to leave her good sister alone. He said, my dear, he said, I'll wait with you. I'm not going to let you cross the Atlantic by yourself. Our furniture will be fine. Famous last words. You'll never guess the name of the ship they put all their furniture on. That's right, the Titanic. Ladies and gentlemen, this here to your right is the New Brunswick Museum. This is the first museum in Canada built here in St. John. Right now it is closed because we're doubling the size of this museum. Come back on a tour in 2028. We will stop right here by the front door and let you out to go visit our refurbished, renewed museum here in St. John, New Brunswick. a lot of these old homes, they have won awards for the way that they have maintained the style and mannerism for which they were built, with the very, the wainscoting, the tin ceilings, the plaster walls, all maintained since the 1800s, right up now into the 2000s. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we go into the Paul Street Park, we have a designated spot to stop at right beside the washrooms that are there, maintained by the Parks Department of the City of St. John. So they're relatively clean, and just depending on how much usage they got between things. But what I tell or ask or mention to everyone who takes my tour is, when you're home, sitting in your favorite chair, thumbing through your pictures that you took on your last trip, and you come to the pictures at St. John. Now maybe you're having a cup of tea and you remember, oh yes, St. John. That's where they invented the tea bag, because our guide Paul told us about it. What I get you to do is Google Reversing Falls Rapids. There you will find time-lapse photography, which will show you from low tide to high tide through the slack tide living room. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was here. It is coming up, and it's dead calm, but it's true. Now, we're going to stop here for about 5 minutes. Washrooms, etc., are the main reason. But if you want to get off,
倒流瀑
take a
布。
picture.
河水现在由右往左流，大约每1个半小时之后由左往右流。
Geography of things, but don't worry, when our bus comes to a stop, it stays right at this island right here. It will be on the right-hand side of the bus. You see the high water mark on this island? When the tide is up that high, the river's going upstream and the rapids are going in the opposite direction.
倒流瀑布。
So I'm going to check with Bernie for time and see how far ahead we are. If we're ahead of schedule, we'll stay here a few minutes longer, because we try to space the buses accordingly. But we are running about every 10 minutes, so we'll be here for at least 5 minutes. If you get off, please take your belongings with you, because there may be other people jumping on the bus. But don't worry, we got lots of room, so you'll have no problem getting back on with it.
下车了，赶快！倒流瀑布，1个半小时之后回头倒流。1个半小时之后，海水涨潮倒流回来。 这个叫做倒流瀑布，神将的经典。
涨潮是今天晚上的。
哦，12小时之后，现在水出去之后，碰到海水就倒回来了。
是碰到海水，是撞到那里后来。
对啊，那边的海平面比较高，慢慢高起来了。绕一圈。哇！ 河水出去，倒流回来，逆时钟倒流回来这里。倒流回来。晚上它倒流回去了。这水量很大。
然后等一下吃看那个什么。
bracelet that you need to get back on the Virgin Brilliant Lady. So if you've lost your bracelet, I've got it. I will turn it into the dispatcher, Canadian-owned brewery in Canada. Now the other major breweries in Canada are not Canadian-owned anymore, but Moosehead is owned by the Olin family. In 1867, so they got a business going. 8 generations later, Andrew Olin, the great-grandson, is the president and CEO of the Moosehead Brewery. Now, Moosehead, they sell beer in all 10 provinces and 3 territories and 15 other countries internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, if you find a Moosehead product anywhere in the world, it will say on the label, Union made in St. John, New Brunswick. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I do have to caution my American friends here. Our beer in Canada is stronger than it is in the United States. It may say 4.5% in both sides of the border, but we calculate alcohol a little bit differently. It's more like a 6.5% American style. Now, I have done extensive research on both sides of the border, and I'm here to tell you, I could drink a dozen of whatever you guys are selling down there, sit down and have supper, and then go looking for something to drink, because, well, it doesn't quite do it. But here in Canada, 6 beer, I need a couple of friends with me. One to remember where I parked the car, and one to explain to the wife how I got to this state. Now, if you're not a beer drinker, they do have...
Whoops.
Oh, we've got wildlife all over the city. White-tailed deer. It is made using 80% Moosehead Light plus a fruit juice that is specifically made for the brewery. Now, last summer, I had a group of ladies from Cincinnati, 5 young people. Well, I call them young. They were in their mid-40s. They said to me, we're hot, we're parched, we'd like something to drink, but we don't like beer. We hate beer. I said, well, you go into the brewery and have a radler, and we'll be by in another 15 minutes, and then we'll take you up now. Well, they went in. 90 minutes later, I come back. That's how long it takes to go all the way around. They're my 5 new friends from Cincinnati. And are they ever liquored up? They are loaded. And they each have a 24-pack of Rattler under each arm. Now, I get off the bus, and lucky or unlucky, the jury's still out on that, they recognize me. Look, it's Paul! He turned us on to the Rattler. Well, I never thought getting a group hug from Paul was an experience. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Rattler is one of the favorite brews that people come off and tell me they've enjoyed it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, up ahead here to the right, you see these tanks. They belong to the brewery. Each tank holds 1 million pints of beer. Oh, for a drill and a straw. Pardon me? There is a tour, but not part of this tour, and you had to book it many weeks in advance. Now, those of you who were wondering about the price of gas here, the Shell station's posting it for $1 per liter. Multiply that by 4, and it's 4 liters in a gallon. I'm not upset. 20 cents a liter more for car. So, ladies and gentlemen, the happiest place in the entire city of St. John, Moosehead Brewery. Right here you will see a life-size bronze moose. These creatures weigh about 1,400 pounds, wanders the woods and roads all of Atlantic Canada. This one is suitable for pictures. He will, at the end of the day, go in and drag you out back on the bus, which would be Willostock Park, and was once the site of the New Brunswick mental institution. It was built to put them out into more modern facilities. He took it upon himself to buy it for $1 from the river Willostock. That's a Maliseet word for beautiful river. From up at this park, you can get a beautiful view of the city harbor and the Brunswick Falls and the St. John River. Statues of famous people with historical value, such as the first mayor, Mayor Winslow, the first governor, Lord Ludlow, and the father of Confederation, Leonard Tilley, plus many more. Now the entrance, there's an entrance here, but the other entrance that we use is the staircase across from the St. John Skywalk. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Skywalk is a steel structure that protrudes out over the St. John River, and there's 3 such structures like this in North America. One in the Grand Canyon, one in a provincial park in Alberta, and one here in St. John, New Brunswick. Now, ladies and gentlemen, they had new management this year for the Skywalk, the owners of the restaurant, and I went in to see them and told them that our double-decker buses were stopped. A movie which shows you all of the different things about the falls. It's really quite good. However, they gave us a deal. They said anyone with a pink sticker on the buses will get a discounted price of only $10 Canadian. When you use your American credit card, it works out to about $7 US to go see the movie, go up on the Skywalk, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, here at the cross, that to your right is a Skywalk out there, protruding out over the river. On your tour map.
Number 9.
At Water Street, where we stop, the next street,
倒流瀑布那边。
important. That's Canadian for which line up and go back to the end of the condominium down here along the river, and they can walk indoors all through. You can't
他说这个碰了，
spend
那也是都碰。
New Brunswick 省郡的市区码头市场。9月28、2025。啤酒面包。可能这边东，好，龙虾。 啤酒，
我先问他停多久，他说没关系。
But in time, we out to charm you. Oh, oh, oh.
下。
看到球的，
对。
那是
沙拉、蛋菜。
你看一下这个，
好。
尝上去是
对啊。
可是你要看它有什么，是有加什么。
花生生蚝。
100是好像很贵。
请你吃，走。这样。嗯，走啊！1877年大火，重建。哦，对啊。
Bacon 什么 baby red potatoes。
有，很漂亮。这沈重的市中心码头。1879年，这是1877年。邮政局。枫叶有些开始变红了。邮轮码头到了。
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you very much. Cheers. Absolutely.
冬天下雪的时候盖到消防栓，所以做一个比较高的标志，不要去撞到。
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
蓝凤生蚝半场20块。教堂。
嗯。
教堂。
嗯。1934年。 Brunswick。可以，漂亮，对，你这边。这个是另外一个 market， 刚好 market city market。这个比较像 market。
冰糖。
对啊，枫糖来，250年的。水果69cent。看他们进的。没有卖海鲜，有咖啡厅。现在是这里2点，St. John New Brunswick 下午2点。市场的另外一边公园 ，New Brunswick 的大学。哦，原来在这里 ，University of New Brunswick。对不对？好。
那一招可以做吗？
New Brunswick 的大学。公车站 ，New Brunswick 的公车。政府部门。1824年1824。